So in this video, I will be talking a little bit about variables, right? So what variables are, how we use them, what are the different types of variables. I'll be covering all these topics. So how do we first of all start our Python? So we go to our search bar and just type IDLE, right? And this opens. See, IDLE is not the only way to use Python. There are some other IDEs, integrated development environments, such as PyCharm, Spider, Anaconda. I'll be explaining these afterwards. First, let us work with IDLE so that you are comfortable with it, because all that we want to achieve in our syllabus, it can be achieved using IDLE, right? And in your Android, you can do it using PyDroid, right? So you have your IDLE. What is the first thing that you should do? You should go to File, New File, right? So this new file opens. Now see, what is variable? See, variables are used to store some amount of data, right? So see, whenever you are working with any kind of a programming language, you will always have some data and you will always need to save that data somewhere. For example, see, when you log into your Gmail account, what are the details that you put in? You put in your username and you put in your password, right? What is Google doing? Google is taking your username, the username that you type, and it is storing it somewhere. It is taking the password that you type and it is storing it somewhere, and then it is checking if the username that you have typed and the password that you have typed are same, means are matching with the your actual username and password. But for doing that, it has to save your username and password somewhere, no? So how can it save it? So for saving anything, we save everything that we are doing in our computer programming. We are saving the data in the computer's memory location, right? There is some amount of memory inside the computer. We call our hard drive, no? So we are storing the data somewhere, and then we have to access that data. So how can we access that data? So to access that data, we give each and every variable a variable name. For example, imagine that there are 100 students in our class, right? So let us say that there are 100 students in our class and I want to call one of the students. Okay, let us say I want to call Ajay. So how am I going to call him? There are two ways. First of all, I can call out his name. I can say that Ajay, come over here. But there might be 2-3 Ajays, right? In the class, it is possible that there might be 2-3 Ajays. So what do? We give each and everyone a roll number, right? We give each and every student a roll number. Now this roll number is what? This roll number is unique. So each and every student has a different roll number, right? So if imagine there are two Ajays, there is one Ajay whose roll number is, let us say, 14, and there is another Ajay whose roll number is 19. Now if I call out just Ajay in these 100 students, there will be two students who will come to me. But if I say roll number 19, then only one Ajay will come, right? So this is how variables work. Variables are what? Basically, what is 19? Does 19 have any meaning? If I go outside into the world, right? Outside the classroom, if I go into the world and if I say roll number 19, come here, no one is going to understand what I am saying, right? Because roll number is 19 where? Roll number 19 is only inside the classroom. Similar to this, variables are only inside your program. If your program is from here to here, right? All the variables will be inside your program only. They have a meaning inside your program only, right? And whenever you are storing some amount of data, whenever you are storing some amount of data that you are going to need afterwards, you give it some kind of a unique identification, right? That unique identification is your variable name. So you can give it a variable name. And how do you store a variable? So to store a variable, we first have to give it a variable name. We have to write the name of the variable, then we have to write the equal to sign, and then we have to write the value of that variable. Okay, this is how we can store a variable. Now see, basically variable, again I will just in short, variable just is a memory location, is just a memory allocation for some amount of data, right? So I will just show you example. Let us say a is equal to 10 and let us say b is equal to 20. Now these are two different variables. The name of this variable is what? The name of this variable is a. And what is the value of this variable? The value of this variable is 10. So whenever you have to create a variable, how do you create a variable? First you give it a name. We are giving it a name. Then we put this equal to sign. This equal to sign is known as assignment operator. Single equal to sign is known as assignment operator. Why is it called an assignment operator? Because it assigns the value to the variable, right? So we can write variable name is equal to, let us say, 100. So what is this assignment operator equal to doing? It is assigning this value to this variable. So whenever we write variable name, what will be the value of that variable name? It will be 100. So how do you create a variable? To create a variable, you have to write variable name, then you have to write assignment operator, then you have to write variable value, right? So this is how you can create a variable in Python. So this was the basics of variables. Now see, in variables also there are different types. See, there are large number of types of variables in Python, but first of all we will be looking at two main types and a few subtypes. Okay, so see, broadly variables are classified into two types. What are the two types? First is string and second is numeric. There are other types also. There is something known as Boolean, there is something known as lists, tuples. All this is there, but we will see all this afterwards. Right now we are only interested in string and numeric. See, whenever we are storing any kind of variable, it can be broadly classified into two types. It can either be some kind of words, information, right? For example, your username and password, right? Your username is not made up of only numbers, na? It has English alphabets also inside it. Your password also has some kind of English alphabets inside it. Now it is not necessary that the alphabet should be English only. Yeah? It can be some other languages also. For example, in China and in Japan, they use their own languages in their computers. So that is also accepted. That is also a type of string. So whenever you want to store non-numeric values, means things that are not numbers, then that variable is known as a string variable. Okay, and whenever you want to store some numeric value, number values, then that type of variable is known as numeric. It can be something like 10, it can be something like -19, it can be 100.5, right? These all are what? It can be minus let us say 75, sorry, -75 point something, sorry, not alphabets. It can be like this. If I put in alphabet over here, that is not okay. Huh? It becomes non-numeric, right? So strings is what? Strings is all the words and information and all this kind of things. Numeric data is what? Numeric data is only numbers. Now numbers itself can be divided into two parts. The numbers can be complete numbers, means what? There is nothing after the decimal point. Means what? They can be integers. Means what? For example, 10, 0, -10, minus some big number, right? Some big number positive. All these are what? All these are integers, complete numbers, no decimal point. Otherwise, they can also be decimal point numbers, right? These decimal point numbers are known as float. Okay, for example, 12.8, or it can be 7 point something big, or it can even be 0 point something. It can be -8 point something, right? All these are float. So see, till now what have we seen? We have seen majorly two data types. String is used to store words, everything, information, every non-numeric thing that we want to store, that is in string. And if we want to store some numeric data, which we want to do some numerical operations like addition, subtraction, multiplication, that is stored inside numeric data. Numeric data is further divided into two types: integers, which store only integers, that is no decimal point allowed, and float, in which decimal points is allowed, right? So how can we store all this information? So see, I will just delete all this information. Now I will store one variable. Let us say I want to store my name. Okay, so I will create a variable called name. This is the variable name. Then I will write equal to. This is the assignment operator. And if I want to store some string, for example, if my name is Ajay, I cannot write like this. If I write like this, I will just save this and run this. Okay, I will just see how did I save it. I can go Control S, or I can just type Control S. Okay, or I can do file save as, right? And I will save it as sample2. Okay, so see, if I write name is equal to Ajay, now see, if I try to run this code now, it will give me an error. See, it is saying that name Ajay is not defined, right? So how do I store a string variable? Whenever I have to store a string variable, na, I have to write that variable inside quotation marks. See, so I have to store the name Ajay. So I will have to write it inside quotation marks, right? So I will write it like this. Now I can store it in single quotation mark also. Otherwise, I will say surname, okay? I can store it inside double quotation marks also. Now see, double quotation marks does not mean you have to write single quotation mark 2 times. Huh? Double quotation mark means double quotation. There is a difference between writing single quotation 2 times and writing double quotation. Double quotation is shift single quotation, right? So I can write Patil. Okay, so this is the name, this is the surname. Now I can print this. Now see, if I print, see, now whenever I have to print this, I just have to write this print command. I will be talking about this print command afterwards, but just to show you, see, I have stored name and surname. Now if I run this, I won't get any error. There will be no error. See, no error anywhere. But I am not getting any output, right? Okay, so see, just for 1 minute, I will write over here also. I will write in the terminal. Sorry, I will write in the shell. Name is equal to Ajay. See, it is going to give me an error. See, same error as before. Ki name Ajay is not defined. But if I write it like this, name is equal to Ajay. See, no error. Now if I write name, see, it gives me Ajay. Why did it give me Ajay? Because this value is now stored inside this variable name. So whenever I call roll number 19, Ajay stands up and comes to me. Why? Because roll number 19 is that keyword, is that variable name. He knows that whenever I want him, I am going to call roll number 19. Similarly, whenever I want this value, whenever I want Ajay, what I am going to do? I am going to call name, right? Similarly, I can create another variable. I can create something like number is equal to 45. Now see, whenever we are storing numbers, we don't have to put it in quotation mark. Okay, I can store it like this. I can store number is equal to 45.6, right? And if I type number, I will get 45.6. See, 45.6 does not have quotation marks around it. So because it does not have quotation marks around it, it means it is a number. But I can write like this also. Okay, I can write num is equal to, I will write inside quotation marks. Okay, now I am writing inside quotation marks. And now if I type num, this 30 is inside quotation marks. Whenever anything is inside quotation marks, it means that it is a string. It means it is a string. Whenever there is no quotation mark, in this case it is numeric. There can be other data types also, for example bool, but I will show you. I will just write condition is equal to false. See, the color of false is different. Okay, if I write condition, see, it is giving me false, but there is no quotation mark around it. I will explain boolean afterwards, but just understand anything that has quotation marks around it is always string. Okay, so over here we have seen how to create variables basically, and we can also write it in double quotes also, no problem. Even if we write it in double quotes, Python will automatically convert it into single quotes. For example, see, if I write surname is equal to, I am writing in double quotes Patil. Okay, and if I again print surname, see, it is going to print Patil in only single quotes, right? So try preferably going for single quotation marks in Python. You can also use double quotes, especially if you are coming from Java or C++. Okay, so what have we seen in today's lecture? Mainly, we have seen, what have we seen? We have seen what are variables, What are variables? Variables are basic memory locations where we can store some amount of data and we can retrieve the data using the variable name. Then we have seen how to create a variable. Okay? Whenever we want to create a variable, how to create a variable? To create a variable, we have to first write the variable name, right? Then we have to write the assignment operator, and then we have to write the variable value. Okay, we have seen the types of variables, not all, but we have seen three types. First is string. String is used to what? String is used to store non-numeric data, which we can also call as language data, right? And then we have numeric data, which is what? All the numbers. And in numeric data also we have two subtypes. The first subtype is what? First subtype is our normal numbers, which are integers, which do not have decimal point. And then we have float, which have decimal point. Okay, so this is what we have seen today, right? So hopefully this much part is understood by you. And whenever we are storing string, what do we have to do? Whenever we are storing string, we have to write it in quotation marks, right? So this is how we can store all this data. And whenever you want to access a variable, we just have to type the variable name. Then it can be accessed. For example, see over here, if I want 45.6, I can just type over here number and I will get 45.6, right? So there are different types of variables in Python. Right now we have seen only string and numeric, right? Now the last thing which I want to explain to you before ending this lecture is there are some rules for giving variable names. Okay, rules for variable names. Okay, you cannot give any variable name that you want, right? There are some rules for variable names. What are the rules for variable names? These are very simple. The first rule is what? The variable name will contain only A to Z, then capital A to capital Z, underscore 0 to 9 and underscore. Okay, it can only contain these elements. You can put small a to small z, you can put capital A to capital Z, you can put 0 to 9, and you can use underscore, right? No spaces in variable name. There should be no spaces in variable name, which means what? I cannot write a name like number 1. This is not acceptable. So if I want to write number 1, how should I write number 1? I should write number underscore 1, or I can write number 1, but no spaces. What is the third rule? Third rule says that variable name should not start with number, right? It should not start with number. For example, you cannot have variable name like this, one number, right? You can have variable name as number 1, but you cannot have variable name as one number. It should not start with a number. Then you cannot have variables with any other characters. For example, I cannot have variables such as var hash or var @, right? This is not allowed. You can have a very big variable name without spaces, no spaces. You can have very long variable name. There is no problem in that. But no spaces. It should not start with number, and it can only contain alphabets, numbers, and underscore. And the last rule for variable naming is it is case sensitive. When I mean case sensitive, it means that variable num is different, variable this num is different, this num is different, this num is different, this num is different. Okay, though all are num, but all are different. Why? Because in some it is all small, in one is capital, all are capital, right? So these are all different, right? For example, if you want to see, we can type over here. We will go to our shell. Over here, I will type num is equal to 10. Then I will type capital N num is equal to 20. I will type all capital is equal to 30, right? Now if I say, see, if I call just num, it is giving me 10. If I call N capital UM small, it is giving me 20. If I am calling all capital, it is giving me 30. If I do like this, NU capital and M small, it will give me an error because this is not defined anywhere. So see, NUM is not defined. See, it is asking, did you mean num? It is suggesting ki you must have made some spelling mistake in capital small, right? So it is saying like this. So remember, these are the 4 rules for naming your variable. What are the 4 rules? That the variable name will only contain A to Z, 0 to 9 and underscore. Okay, no spaces in variable name. Variable name should not start with number, and variable name is case sensitive, right? So hopefully at least the concept of variables is clear to you. See, we are going to use variables extensively. There can be no program without variables, because for any program we need data, and for storing data we need variables. That is why please remember all this carefully. String, numeric, we will see other data types afterwards, but right now please focus on this much part. Okay, thank you.